Sure, and I think Nicolia covered a lot of the longer range bike and pedestrian things that are connecting into the site. We'll drill down into some of the detail. I do want to say, I have to remind myself every time, this is still a draft, and we went and had all these public meetings, we heard a lot of input, and Gary, I know you said that you're the most popular person in the room because of the park, but I have to say I heard a lot about traffic.
Least favorite.
Yeah. So I'm at the bottom. Sorry, but we're in this process. We took all of that information and we looked at a whole lot of different alternatives, different things, different ways to do these to improve the traffic in the area. We looked at we look at existing conditions, what it is today. We look at the future when this project will be built out, and then we look at we look at an interim in there that future year without the project itself. And so what we found, just as a quick summary, when you fix the existing and the future conditions without this project, and when you do improvements to make those things work, then when you add this project on top of that, then the traffic still works. Okay, so long story short, we've taken a lot of information. This is our best stab at what we think is the best thing to do here. We understand that we're not working in a silo. So we have to, we share this with everybody. We share this with GDOT. Peachtree is a very vital road in Brookhaven and beyond. And so we have to work with a lot of partners to make these things happen. So they have a lot of questions. They will have a lot of questions. There are going to be a lot of details to work out as we go through this process. So we're actually in the process of removing draft from everything and making it final, so we can present our final findings. We still think this is where we're going, but we're going to be put to the ringer with a lot of stakeholders as they review that traffic study, and then we'll get into a lot of the detailed design questions.
When will the draft traffic study be available for the public?
Probably within about 2 weeks.
It's probably going to match up with our submission for zoning, 1st of July.
May not want to take draft off of it, because there'll probably be comments and adjustments to your final.
Well, you're talking about for the DRI.
But there's
and the site itself.
there's always that. There's always that, and we understand that.
A lot of people see final and they think it's etched in concrete,
Right.
It's a living document that needs adjustment.
Right. Okay. So, and I'm sorry I missed last week, but this is the existing conditions today at Peachtree and North Druid Hills. Next is what we're proposing, and this is us. This is intended to be cartoony. Because there's a lot of details of the road and the right-of-way width and the details that we don't know yet, and we haven't talked with our stakeholders, GDOT, city, in detail about the traffic, and so we don't want these to look final. But when we do these improvements, when we talk about these, we're always this is a TOD. This is a project around a transit station. So the pedestrian and bikes and crossing these roads and these vehicles is always high on our mind, and making sure that we do accommodate those. The main thing here at Peachtree and North Druid Hills is adding a second southbound left turn lane. And when we do that, we create a shadow of one of those left turn lanes on the south side of the intersection, which is a great place to put a median to have a pedestrian refuge that could be beautified, replanted. We heard a lot of comments about possibly bringing the Buckhead concept of that median and putting it up here as well, which we think is a great idea. And so one thing that's not shown here is this is a lot of lanes. These are a lot of wide lanes. One of the things that we're trying to talk with GDOT about is narrowing these lanes. And we talked about variances before. Narrowing these lanes would be a variance with GDOT. And so we have to go to GDOT and ask some things because we do want to make these things better. If we can get narrower lanes, I think we can fit in a median here to extend them along between Druid Hills and Dresden.
Question.
What do you need to take them to get that? What width?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same things. Like we said, wide lanes. What do we have out there is wide?
So today we haven't run across here because we didn't want to run across this section of the road. we ran across up on the north of Dresden. Dresden, where it's straight, is 75 feet from the face of curb to the face of curb. And so there are 6 lanes today on Peachtree, north of Dresden.
12-foot lanes.
75 feet. Now, 2 feet of that on each side is a gutter pan for the water to drain in. And so in a lot of places in Atlanta, you see the gutter pan paved, and that's part of a lane. That might be something that we could do to help us include things like a median in the road. But again, that's something that's out of the norm for GDOT. And so it's not something that I can get up in front of you today and say, yes, we can go do that. So I'm trying to be very careful on what we're saying we can do, because there's still a lot of coordination to do.
So in theory, just in theory, when we talk about narrowing lanes on a road like this, we're going from 12 to 11, 12 to 10. These could end up anywhere between maybe 10 and a quarter foot to 10 and 3/4 foot. Okay.
11 feet is a reasonable, is a pretty easy request of GDOT. Less than that is hard.
You're right. It's probably worth mentioning though that a lot of the lanes down Peachtree are already narrow.
Yes.
Already
Oh yes. Absolutely.
This area has never been looked at, studied, messed with.
Absolutely.
And so these lanes are way too wide. It's a
And
waste.
the other thing
Peachtree's already
fast traffic.
The other thing, we know that there's the LCI project along this corridor to build multi-use path and to improve the sidewalk connectivity up and down Peachtree. And one of the other thing we've heard is a desire from the city's perspective to reduce the speed limit on Peachtree. When you get up past Dresden, it's more like a highway than a road, right? And so narrowing lanes, well, that's that would slow people down, right? And so that could be a consistent theme, and with improving the pedestrian experience with the LCI project, narrowing the lanes to fit in some lanes where we need to get some mobility for the vehicles, allow pedestrian refuges in the middle of the street. There seems to, in my perspective, there's an alignment of things that can help us get there. We need to work with GDOT to make
So
that.
how large is a pedestrian refuge or median if you are able to get one? What's that size?
Pedestrian refuge would have to be at least 6 feet.
Okay.
The bigger the better. And sometimes you'll put push buttons in the middle so a pedestrian can go called two-stage pedestrian crossing. Don't know that we would do that here, but we might. It just depends on how wide we can get that.
The planters in Buckhead that we keep referring to, the planting area themselves is about 5 or 6 feet. And there's it's 6 inches, 8 inches of curb on both sides. And if you drive along those planters, you'll notice that there's a yellow line on the ground next to the planter. From yellow line to yellow line is about between 8 and 9 feet.
Wow.
So the planter itself is about 6.
So the other thing that was high in our mind when we're doing this was trying to make things that are doable and that could be done relatively quickly. There are a lot of ideas floating around of big changes that would be very impactful to right-of-way and to properties in some neighborhoods. And we were trying to keep our thoughts towards keeping it in the right of way, and these recommendations, the way we're proposing to do these, keeps it in the right of way, makes it much more doable, much faster track, because we don't impact right of way. We don't trigger a lot of studies and needs that could come with public funding from GDOT to do these.
Do you have any coordination of the light signals at North Druid Hills and the Total Wine Shopping Center? It looks like you've straightened that intersection up a little bit, but is the sight distance still a problem?
The sight distance is still a problem.
Can't run simultaneously.
To make that work, GDOT's looking at that right now, and they're considering it. I haven't heard the latest. When we did the study, when we were in the midst of the analysis, they were thinking probably not, and so we've assumed that wouldn't happen now. If that can happen, it's pretty easy to change some of these things in the recommendation and make it even better than what we've got.
Okay.
But because potentially to make that work, you may have to lower Peachtree, which is a huge. So we can get on to the next one. So that's Peachtree and North Druid Hills. Peachtree and Dresden, go ahead. And so here, Dresden, Peachtree, and y'all saw this last time. This is the main stretch where we were looking at narrowing the lanes. We could extend this down further to extend this median down. There are good locations here to fit in medians with this concept. This cross section could be carried, it could be carried all the way up to Ashford Dunwoody, because this cross section is consistent all the way up. And so when I think of this, and when I think of long term, and I think of down the road and what this road may be and what the city wants it to be, I could see pieces of median dropped in. There's basically a long left turn lane that goes for 2 miles or however far it is. It doesn't need to be just one long lane. We can fit in a median in there as well and drop it in that area. And so with this, I think there's great potential to carry this type of thing beyond here and up Peachtree. And that's consistent with us trying to lower the speed limit. It's consistent with us trying to improve the pedestrian crossings across Peachtree. There's not many people that want to cross as you go north, but there are MARTA stops, and so we have to respect that, and we have to provide a safe place for that. So this is a concept that could be carried a very long way. But again, this is our thought. We've heard, we've listened, and this is what we're coming back with. We've got to take this to GDOT. They have to get into the nitty-gritty details of our traffic study before they'll even start to give us a firm answer on what we can do there.
There was a lot of discussion last time about that dual right. Have you had a chance?
Great segue. Next slide.
I still see it.
What is the truck percentage on Peachtree? Because that will dictate your outside lane width.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head. We've got it in our study in the counts.
Should be.
We'll have that with the data. Okay, so actually I already talked about right away and feasibility and recommendations. When we were looking at ways to make this doable and implementable in the short term, and so we have some constraints up at Dresden. So this is a picture of Dresden as it passes under the MARTA tracks. There's a column for the MARTA bridge on both sides of Dresden. This one is basically up against the back side of the sidewalk that's up on the road. This one might have a couple feet between the sidewalk and the column. When we saw this, and we saw it as not able to widen here. We we heard maybe we bore through, maybe we could take a sidewalk and bore through some of the walls we have along the rail in MARTA and move the sidewalk off of the street. I like the idea of moving it off of the street, but I don't know what that does to the pedestrian environment if it's in a tunnel there along the street, and the difficulty of doing, this is there's fill within here, it's structural dirt, so that's very complicated. Then dealing with the railroad, that may turn it in from a short term to a long term project.
What are the width of those lanes right now? Are they 12-foot lanes right now?
I don't know what these widths are. Probably 11 or 12.
What's the distance from the back of the column to the face of the wall?
Right here, that looks like it's about 4 feet.
It's a pretty precise thing to
So when we looked at this, we felt like this was a little restrictive and not possible to do much, and we were going to be stuck with the pavement that's out there. Okay, so that's on the Dresden side. So if you go to the next slide, when you look at Peachtree, the right of way there, this line is actually back on the should be back on the far side of the bushes there on Waffle House, but with the patio from the restaurant, and the building comes up right up near the right of way. We felt like that was very restrictive. We can't go that way if we want to do anything. This way we felt was very restrictive. I was actually walking it today just to double check some things. I mean, there's a sidewalk here. Maybe it's possible to take out that sidewalk because there's no sidewalk for the rest of Peachtree. The only people who would be walking here in theory would be the Waffle House customers, and we might be able to get them out there. That's just an idea that popped into my head today. But so when we were doing our recommendations, we felt like this constraint was going to limit us from adding significant width here to make that improvement. So go back. Oh no, this is fine. So we looked at the possibility of doing dual left turn lanes here. Okay, and so if we do the dual left turn lanes here, we have to have 2 lanes going this way on Dresden, and so we lose one of our right turn lanes that we had added. Okay, with that dual left turn lane, we can't add another northbound through because of the right-of-way constraint here. Because to add that second left turn lane, we would need I totally just lost my train of thought right there. So that space, that lane that we're building right here. So we're stuck with the right-of-way that we've got, that width that we've got. We would narrow the lanes to fit in the second left turn lane. So we couldn't do the other 3.
What if you took out that island where your finger is right now, and that turn lane, make that the southbound left turn lane, take the median across the southern driveway to the Brookhaven Station, I think it's called, or that thing, and make them turn left into the northern end of the shopping center, the next one up, because you also have the apartment complex.
That's definitely a possibility, but we're also impacting significantly.
Medians don't impact businesses, it changes the paths, it's not a compensatory item.
I dare to say that to them.
I'll say it to them because they have access to alternatives.
And so this again, this is what we heard. This is what we're bringing.
That'd be almost an impossible left-hand turn there, anyways. Most likely today.
We're gonna go bring this and share it. Absolutely, there's potential for this to change. Yes.
If you do that, I would love to see you put a median, because I can't tell you how many times coming south on Peachtree, I come nose to nose with a car in my lane to turn into that stupid.
Okay.
All right, so I want to encourage y'all to keep talking, keep discussing. As long as y'all can keep this team here and they're willing to stay, that's great. This is a great dialogue. I've got to go just because I've got another public meeting to go to. Y'all, this room is secured, so you're not able to go to the restroom anymore, so you're going to have to, you have to go to the bathroom and have to leave. So in addition to, Art's probably going to summarize at the end the next public meetings that y'all are going to have, and he can go over that. But as a CRB member, I really encourage you to, one of your responsibilities is to reach back out to your communities and communicate what these discussions are and the interactions that we're having, and continue to get that feedback from your communities so that we can give it to MARTA and their development team, but also communicate what's going on in these meetings. I am willing, as I've always said, if any of your respective groups want to have an individual meeting where we come and talk, I certainly will be there to discuss this in greater detail. So, but please communicate back out about all the events, because we want this to be an open process. All right.
Thanks, Bates.
Y'all stick to it. Thanks much, everyone.
Thank you. So, we can certainly look at that. We did look at, with that second left turn lane, the intersection still needs more improvements. And so we showed that we still need that dual right. And so there's still a constraint on Dresden as well. What we need to do is go look at that dual left with the third through. We'll look at that this week.
So one of the comments though that we did hear over and over again is that, hey, if you're adding another lane, we still need that left turn lane into the development there with Hudson Grill and all the mushroom and everything. Yes, you know, it might be a challenge to turn left into that, but we know from the past it was just a through lane, and it was rendered unusable because people were automatically crossing over the Dresden intersection, stopping so that they could turn left.
Right.
So, you know, we've got to look at both sides of the coin there, because there have been multiple comments saying, as long as you keep that left turn lane, because we still need to be able to drive through.
So the northbound, what she's talking about is the northbound left into all these properties. It used to be 3 lanes through, and that inside lane wasn't a left turn lane, it was a through lane, and people would have to stop in that to turn, and people would get, so they grabbed it. So that's how we ended up with these recommendations, just because we were trying to be mindful of these constraints that we saw. Yes, that's what we think is a constraint. We're still going to be talking with all our stakeholders. There's certainly possibility to do other things, but
when just back to timing, an important goal is that we try to do as few things as possible that could slow this down with the state. And if we want these improvements to line up with the first phase of the TOD, you gotta let go of some short-term stuff and know that there's going to have to be long-term solutions.
Yeah, but we were kind of told out of town Brookhaven and it didn't work out.
No, that's different.
So we need to have proper solutions.
Well, no, we need to clarify some of the facts that were in an article were not true about what was done and not done for town.
I know, but Kinley Horton did a great job during that report, and they found that this intersection would blow up because of it. Their own numbers predicted that,
right?
And yet it got executed.
No, we're talking about making these improvements. I'm saying if you start affecting people's property rights, taking right-of-ways, you're going to add 2 years to the process. That's all I'm saying. Or more. Okay, so we got to break this thing into, in my opinion, short-term and long-term, and get those things separated, because the more we add and later on, the state's just going to take forever, and it's going to be just like it is. So, okay, anything else on traffic?
I don't think so. We got a bike ped slide, but we talked about that.
Okay. All right. So, you have a handout?
Oh yeah, we have a handout. Everybody asked for traffic volumes. So we have.
So what is the Cliff Note version of volumes? What do we actually add? That's what everybody wanted to know. What is our true impact?